everyone. Welcome back to the msmith.io podcast. I'm really excited for today. Today I'm joined by Jim Quinn. When it comes to the strength world, the nutrition world, just anything related to fitness and health, he's one of my favorite people and one of my go-tos. We had the pleasure of meeting each other a little while back through Dan, who was a previous episode. And I think we're just going to dive into a bunch of stuff. How are you doing, Jim?
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Usually I would go through backgrounds and stuff, but I think you telling the background is going to be better. So if you don't mind, you want to just kick off with about you, who you are.
Quick verbal, I used to be. Played high school football in Long Island, got recruited by University of Hampshire, played for 4 years, got drafted by the Cowboys as a free agent in '83, and then got hurt pretty quickly. Pretty quick cup of coffee with them. And then I just started bodybuilding after that, really to kind of rehab what happened in my spine. And took me, I think, 6 years to turn pro. Was an IFBB pro bodybuilder for 5 years, partly because I turned pro when it was late, I was 30. And then shortly after that, I just started being a personal trainer, and then friends of mine that were strength coaches through the NSCA talked me into going back and getting my CSES. And so lately, probably in the last 10 years, I've gravitated less from just general public fitness, personal training into more training, strength, conditioning, and athletic performance.
Very cool. Yep. And you're located in Milford, right?
I am. Yeah. It's actually the northern part of Milford. It's Dingman's Ferry.
Okay.
But we have it's kind of unique. I used to work in Manhattan, and after the pandemic, on March 13th, we were thrown out of the gym. Gyms were closed. New York City was kind of closed. Me and my wife were forced back into working out of our home. And so I never went back. I was kind of doing the morning in the city and the home gym later in the afternoon and evenings and at night and the weekends. And then it just became more full-time post-pandemic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. When you, so going from that transition of kind of rehabbing and bodybuilding being that outlet to going all in on it, what was the moment for you that you realized that was your track you wanted to take?
So with regard to the injury and then going into becoming full-time strength coach, personal trainer?
Well, the bodybuilding part first, and then I'm going to go from there. So like when you made that transition, because you said at first when you started pursuing the bodybuilding stuff, it was more about the rehab component from what happened on the Cowboys side, right?
Right. Well, yeah, it was a pretty good injury. It was cervical. I have a fusion. And so it was really just rehabbing once I got released in '83. And it was pretty good cervical and lumbar. And it was probably cumulative from being a fullback the last couple of years and blocking. So I just needed to get back in the gym just out of fear of like being decrepit by the time I was 30. And it was interesting when I got released, the head surgeon for the Cowboys, I said, "How bad is it?" And he said, "You're not going to play tennis at 30. And I flew home after being released on a waiver. And I'm like, I'm messed up. So I had to go back in the gym and make sure that wasn't going to be my diagnosis. And so it kind of progressed. And to be perfectly honest with you, Mike, the anabolic steroid thing, the aspect of that, oh my God, we're all using it. Oh my God, The Rock, might be. Anybody that looks superhuman probably is. So we were all doing it. We weren't getting tested. And so the steroids actually were very therapeutic because it helped with all my injuries that I'd had, shoulders, separations, the cervical, the lumbar. So it allowed me and really camouflaged the injuries that I had playing football. And so I was able to train, pretty hard, pretty heavy because of the anabolic. So there's one of the positives that came out of that. It's part of the protocol as a pro bodybuilder or to become a pro bodybuilder.
Very cool. Yeah. And that's such an exciting time. Because what year was that?
Well, so I got released in 83 and then I started competing in 84 and it took me at least 7 or 8 shows. So I failed and kept coming home and not getting the pro card. In our era, you had to win the whole show or maybe the nationals, you had to win your weight class. Later on, they gave out more pro cards. So for us, you had to beat everybody. And I finally did in 1990 when I won the North America, the IFBB North America. And I beat everybody. I won the overall, so I got a pro card. Then I was a pro from 91 to 95. So cool. I made a pretty good living, for limitations that I have kind of structurally. I was probably built to play fullback and running back and not bodybuild. But, when you compete against the best people in the world, bone structure becomes pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And so that was probably, that was my limitation. But I made up for it with being big, and kind of pushing the envelope of mass.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I know because there's a lot of exciting names around that time too. So that must have been really, really interesting time.
Oh, yeah. Yates and Ronnie Coleman was coming up and Kevin Levrone and Sean Ray. And, it was a pretty competitive era. But, the idea every year was to get to the Olympia, to qualify. And the first year back in from, we were with the World Bodybuilding Federation, Vince McMahon's attempt at a pro bodybuilding federation to compete with the IFBB. And we had 2 years with that. And then when I got back in 93, I missed by 1 point. So I was 4th where the top 3 in the Niagara Falls got to the Olympia. And so that was disconcerting. And then it kind of got worse after that. And we were always told that if you had defected and gone to Vince McMahon's World Bodybuilding Federation, which I was one of the 13, that you were never going to be welcomed back, so to speak, in the IFBB. And it turns out that, as far as I know, nobody ever qualified for the Olympia after that. All 13 of us.
Oh, really interesting. Yeah. That must have been cool, though, especially. So did you have a lot of interactions with Vince McMahon? Or?
Minimally.
Yeah.
But he kind of let us do our own thing and be our own person. And we were all able to develop our own personas. And, they were kind of already there, Mike, before, we had gotten to the World Bodybuilding Federation. So they just kind of worked with your persona that you'd already had with photo shoots and, and interviews. It was kind of an easy transition. And he wasn't, it wasn't like the wrestlers were. It wasn't even close. The work wasn't that significant. They were still trying to build it up. We weren't out on the road like those guys were, not even close.
Yeah.
And I got to know some of those guys pretty good, the wrestlers. And Jim Hellwig, the Ultimate Warrior, was a friend.
Oh, that's cool.
And those guys worked, 26 days a month. We weren't working that much. And it was all about getting ready for those 2 shows.
Yeah.
But it didn't work. After about a year and a half, they decided to fold it. And we all had to get back to the IFBB. But as far as I know, none of us ever qualified for the Olympia after that.
Yeah.
And there were some really good bodybuilders like Barry DeMay and Gary Stridham and guys that had been top 5, top 3 in the Olympia. Nobody ever got back.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So moving from there, what was the transition for you into the coaching world, into the strength coaching and all that?
So when I was living in California after 95, when I really couldn't make a living as a bodybuilder, and I was working for Metrex in Irvine, and a couple of people from the gym, Scott Connolly, the owner of Metrex, the founder, he had a really, really great gym, Club Metrex, and it was in Costa Mesa. And a couple of people asked me to, can you train me? And I started training 2 guys, pretty regularly, and enjoyed it. And it was supplemental income. And then I remember running into a friend of mine. I think Dave Sinopoli was from New York. And I was like wondering, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? My bodybuilding career's over. I didn't have a plan B. And he said, Jimmy, he goes, you already have a job. He goes, you know a lot about the gym. You know you're good with people. He goes, don't worry about getting a job per se. And at that point, I just started a job at Metrex working in a cubicle, which is not good for me. too much ADHD. And
I feel
and
you.
I know you do. And so I started training people, and I loved it. And shortly after, I moved back to New York, and then worked a lot on the east side and the west side, and got up to a lot of hours per week. And then post-pandemic, it kind of transgressed into more athletes in groups of athletes, small groups. And then I got back to where I really should be, is really a strength and conditioning specialist, and not so much with the aesthetic world and working with, but I still do. I did this morning. So, I'm still doing a little bit of both, but maybe in another life, I would have got my CSCS earlier, younger, and become, a strength coach at a college level, or, it just didn't work out. It was later. I was 45.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What, is there a specific area of the strength coaching that you're most focused or passionate on? Is there it could be a type of athlete or a specific area of the strength coaching?
Nutrition. So if I could be critical of our industry, and there's been really great books written by really great strength coaches, no nutrition. Not even read this book, not even I had somebody write the last chapter. It's still in its infancy, even though they still have, Division I schools have registered dietitians now, and it's remarkable to me that it's an afterthought. And I follow some really incredible guys in my industry, and they're like, well, you just read a book, or that's not my toolbox, or, it's not that important. You just get somebody had said a week ago, you just get the calories in. To me, thank you for laughing. To me, that's beyond naive.
Yeah.
And it's really the most important aspect of it. If you tear down muscle tissue and you don't feed it back with a significant amount of daily animal source, lower fat protein, you will not change. Don't waste your time.
Yep. And I mean, there's so much empirical evidence out there that just supports it, but for some reason it doesn't get talked about. That's really interesting. We were talking before, we started recording about some of the concepts that people are talking about out there too, right? I've been talking to some kids that are doing lacrosse in college. I'm talking to people from the strongman circuits, and you get different terms like dirty bulk is the one that we were laughing about before this, where it's the calories in thing, right? They're like, well, I was told I need to eat more because I just got to put the weight on. So it's like, one of the things I heard was that they were getting like bowls of spaghetti, almost no protein in it, but just bowls of spaghetti and throwing whatever other fats and stuff they could find, and then just getting chicken breasts and trying to force it in. It's just... So
the chicken breast was the afterthought out of the, grainy, complex, high starch, gluten-ridden carbohydrate and the fat, but the protein, well, it's backwards.
Yep. Yeah.
So what I learned when I was a freshman, and maybe this was what was the best thing that happened besides my teammates and playing college football in New Hampshire, was I took an elective animals, food, and man. It was a nutrition 400 class, and the prof put up on the first day, protein equals grow, carbs equals go, fat equals glow. Have you ever heard it that rare? That basic, that template?
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, it was the first thing I put on the wall in our gym.
Yeah, that's the only time I've heard it was when I visited the gym. I saw it up there.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And then I've kind of expanded on it a little bit, but it was the first thing the prof put on it, and I'm a little bit of a thick-headed Irish and a little bit slow to the change, and I'm like, I want to grow. I'm a 189 pound skinny 6'1" running back. I'm getting the butt kicked by our linebackers.
Yeah.
One went to the Bengals. One eventually went third round to the Lions. They're kicking my butt. They're 245 pounds. I'm like, I think I'm going to do the protein thing. I think I'm going to do the grow thing. And I went headlong with shoving protein down.
Yeah.
I would eat like ninths for if they had like a slab of roast beef.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They were just, there were girls that were interested in me, like from the other dorm, and my friends would ask them, why aren't you interested in Jimmy? And they go, he's gross. He eats ninths.
Oh yeah.
Meaning 9 servings.
Yeah.
I went full board on the high protein thing.
Yeah.
I probably was, at times I was probably taking in 400 or 500 grams.
Yeah. And then you saw the grow results pretty quick.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I I probably progressed quicker and more significantly than anybody that our strength coach had. Yeah.
Very cool.
I was actually thrown out of the gym by our coaches. They said that because they'd never seen anybody grow that much, get hypertrophy, get bigger. And they felt like I was going to slow down. And so I was actually thrown out of the gym as a Division I athlete.
Interesting.
So I would go to the dorms and train there.
That's crazy. And it's funny because there is that misconception still, I think, that as people get bigger, they think the power is gone.
Right. Slower. Not as much fast switch. Well, DK Metcalf.
Okay, and I don't know.
He's a wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, yeah. I'm a...
Jacked beyond belief.
Yeah.
Big, impressive. He looks like a fitness model.
Yeah.
The tackle that just retired, Aaron Donald.
If
you look at the before and after of Aaron, guess what Aaron did differently? He ate better. He started eating like a body. He's a little bit low protein, but he makes up for it with more carb.
Okay.
Right? So carbohydrates are protein sparing. Right? That to me, it's actually more important than carbohydrates go from an aesthetic standpoint, and then even from a performance standpoint, make carbohydrate protein sparing so you don't break it down. Here's a heavy one through gluconeogenesis and convert it, right? You don't want the protein converted into sugar. You want it to be used for recovery, strength, building catabolic, torn down muscle tissue, right? So so eat it for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Interesting.
In my industry, we knew that, Mike, when we in the early 70s with Arnold and Louis, and Louis was one of my training partners at one point.
Oh, really?
And he was really low on protein, lower than what he should have been at 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And about 3 months later, he was 320.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
very, very interesting.
And it works for everybody. It's not just us sitting here as both, gym people, so to speak. It works for everybody. It just like change the carb fat thing. I call it a double whammy, and switch to protein.
Yep.
Just try it. And I've trained people that on a Tuesday, they drank an extra shake for a couple of days, and the Thursday they were stronger.
Yep.
Right. I was trying to convince my son on this weekend. I said, if you train on Saturday, you're going to have an adaptation per the demand, the stimulus, and you're going to be a little bit quicker, a little bit stronger, because you're not relying on ground reaction forces, running, you run, gravity, 2.2 pounds, not that heavy a vest, right? And then there was some air resistance on Saturday. It was windy at the game, so there was a little drag. So those three forces, are they changing really? Well, if it's windy, that one changes. But if you're not changing those forces external of your body, the three, it's not enough adaptation. It's not a big enough demand.
Yeah, you're not getting that overload on it.
Put a weighted vest on.
Yeah,
there's an idea.
Yep.
Your question before about it's just bewildering to me, and it's usually the older guys. I'm now the older guy. We have to come to a place as older guys and go, what happens if what we were doing all along was wrong? And it was. It wasn't for me because I took that nutrition course, and thank God it wasn't for me because I got into bodybuilding. So I realized with training skinny kids or fat kids, and I don't mean that to be demeaning, it's actually a biological word. It's one of the 3 macronutrients. That this is what's going to change them the most. And it's not going to be incline pressing, flat dumbbell pressing, hammer incline pressing, or what other BOSU incline pressing, right? 4 different push movements. It's not going to be that. It's going to be the food.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there's plenty of people that I just kind of give some nutrition advice to or help out. So yesterday was Easter, right? Everybody blew it out over Easter.
As they should.
Yeah. Yep. And they do. But then the mindset, instead of just getting back on the track, right? Like getting back on the rails and just eating as you should, they're like, I'm going to outwork all the stuff I ate, almost like a repentance. And it's like, you don't have that mindset. Just know that you should have the caloric overload there and then just get back to normal.
And I was actually telling my wife, cousin who had us all over for Easter. And oh my God, I ate so much. I said, it can actually work as a benefit, but that was Sunday. By Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, you can actually have a faster metabolism if it's a reboot.
Yeah.
If it's one cheat day and you're just eating extra energetic calories, meaning carbs and fat, it could work as a benefit.
Yeah.
It's just waking up Monday morning and ending the barrage.
Yep.
The dirt. What did you say? The dirty.
Oh, the dirty bulk.
God, I thought that was like a new steroid.
Yeah, no. Maybe.
Is that what's the other one that everybody's fascinated with? The strength one. We used to call it Parable and
I don't know.
Or Finajet. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Tren.
Oh yeah, Tren. Yeah.
I love those nicknames.
Yeah, Tren. What's the other one?
Tren. Gains, Mike.
Yeah,
Gains.
It's all Gains. Yeah.
Oh my God.
You love the colloquialism.
I don't. I like the science. Yeah. And the science says eat more protein.
Yeah.
If you want to change anything, don't even change your way of training. Probably eat more protein.
Yeah. And it's funny because of the other things we were talking about before this too, but food marketing plays a big part in issues around people consuming enough protein. And I think there's misconceptions from people, especially females that I know,
right,
that protein's going to make them like big and bulky. And it's
a Wendy's hamburger might.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a Wendy's hamburger and a lean chicken breast?
Everything.
Fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not high fat. You can go to a supermarket and the redder the better is a good analogy for buying meat, right? Or ground turkey can get to 97%, just low fat, non-fat. And then when you hear some of these studies and they're eating more protein, are we cognizant of the fat content? It's always got to be looked at as protein to fat ratio. How about an egg? It's a 1-to-1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the egg for a lean gainer an ectomorph? Somebody that's been the Cars singer, right? That's somebody that's been skinny their whole life. Can they get away with that? Yeah, they can. Right? They can eat 30% dietary fat, 35. Maybe that's a better macronutrient ratio for them. But for the rest of us, especially as you get older, or if you're not doing a ton of cardio or a ton of conditioning, right? It's always got to be protein to fat ratio.
Yeah.
So Wendy's, no. A lean 93% burger, better.
That's the other thing too. Actually, I was talking to my brother about this because when you go out and get a burger from a restaurant or something,
right,
you're not getting lean. You're getting like 70-30.
75%.
Yeah.
Once you hit north of 80. It's like cardboardish.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not going to feed you that. They're not in the business of feeding you healthy food.
Yeah.
And if you're going to a place and eating healthier, do that at home.
Yeah.
Right. I'm fine with. I have an 18-year-old athlete as a son. I'm fine with Chick-fil-A. It's gotten expensive, right?
Really expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah. I mean, people like us that eat like 6 tenders, it's pretty pricey. When I take my son there, it's like $35.
Yeah.
And that kid can eat. It's at least a healthy alternative. Better, good, better, best.
That's my go-to, right? Like if I have to get something out fast food wise, it would be
Chick-fil-A
Chick-fil-A.
near me.
Yeah, they have what is it, like the grilled or the naked tenders, whatever those are called. Yeah.
He gets those with the sandwich.
Yep.
Yeah, the tenders they're fine. It's chicken.
It's just chicken breast.
It's real chicken.
Yeah. That's cool. It's really interesting because if working out's what you do for maybe an hour a day,
right,
nutrition's what you're doing for the other 23 hours a day, right? So
you just said some math that I really like. So what I usually tell people is you're training 2, 3, 4 hours a week.
Yep.
You're awake 110 hours.
Yeah.
Do you think 4, or let's say 3 versus 110? Does the food eating thing, the effects of food for the waking hours of 110? Do you think that? I would rather have somebody have a good day of eating than a good workout.
Yeah.
And if they train really hard, intense, resistive training, they do a push workout as a sports performance workout, pushing, right? Push pull. Okay. On a 2-day a week. If they're not eating well, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yep.
If you don't eat protein, pulsing it throughout the day, don't expect yourself to change.
Yeah.
And so just being, perfectly blunt, when you throw anabolics in that, I always say you could put somebody on anabolics and they could pretty much eat, French toast and French fries and egg yellows, and they're still going to look fairly good just by virtue of the anabolics.
Yeah.
And Lord knows I know that better than anybody, having done what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then people see that and they see somebody and they're jacked all of a sudden, and it's like, it's probably the chemicals.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about that too. And you can see like, it's almost night and day difference that you'll see that.
Sure.
Now, if you're eating healthy on top of that, that's a
then
huge.
Then you have a pro bodybuilder.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's super interesting. It's the fuel, right? Like I always think of it, the way that people, for some reason it seems to click is it's the fuel you're literally putting in your car. So if you go put a high ethanol fuel in your car, that car's not going to last very long, right?
Yeah.
So
good analogy.
Yeah,
Yep.
I love doing that because that's usually where it clicks for people, and then they realize, but it's a cycle, right? Like sometimes
watch that word, double meaning.
Yeah.
Double meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people need to start with the training first, like the strength training, and feel a little bit good, and then all of a sudden they start to care about diet more, and it unfolds that way. I've seen that. And then I've seen the flip where some people start to focus on diet first. And then all of a sudden they're feeling a little bit more like socially aggressive and wanting to go into like actually training and building out their habits that way.
And what you just said, that analogy, people like me that, I was a college football player and then I became a pro bodybuilder. We have to like ask more questions to the general public or to somebody that's just starting out, or, because we all, when I first started training people, the first 5 or 6 months, I was like, why isn't everybody like changing drastically? Mm. Why isn't this big transformation? I'm like, you were a pro bodybuilder, they don't eat like you. Yeah. And it came to like an epiphany that you got to teach food.
Yeah.
You have to teach nutritional support, sports performance, nutrition. You have to teach them that. Otherwise, and then they could be conceivably coming in hypoglycemic, low blood sugar. They could be in a negative nitrogen balance, meaning not having enough protein per the amount of catabolism or tear down, and they're actually going to get weaker and they're going to be more injury prone. They're going to be lethargic. They'll be dehydrated. They could throw off their sleep patterning, their sleep quality. Yeah. So, in a prolonged answer to your question a while, it's the food.
Yeah.
And my brother John, who's a brilliant guy, and graduated from Harvard, graduated from Columbia. He ran public companies, and me and he were training when we were early on. And he said to me one day, he goes, "You know what this is?" And I said, "No, what?" And he said, "It's the battle of the fork and the knife." Mm. Well, now it's the battle of the fork and the blender. Yeah. But it is. It's, and I learned that as a pro bodybuilder. It's, you could build how much muscle you want off season. It's really what you do in the 10 to 12 weeks getting ready. Yeah. And that's really a good template for the general public too. Do what we do. What does everybody do from the bikini model to the strongman? Primarily more protein than you do.
Yeah, protein first is the thing you'll hear.
And Gabrielle Lyon, who's really great, PhD, I follow her. I've been following her all along. And, those kind of folks that are pro-protein, and then they get constantly ridiculed. And it's just, to be blunt, the people that are ridiculing them, the vegans and the vegetarian, God bless, if that's what you want to do and you have a social or, animal protective kind of a mindset, and that's the moral way you choose to feed yourself, that's fine. But when you look at those people, Mike, even the women, their hair, their nails, they don't look healthy.
Yeah, they've done studies on it. They've got so many studies out there. And I know, what was that documentary that came out where it was the guy that was a strength athlete and he was trying to push
the strongman.
Yeah. That was interesting that they were trying to push it. And I'm always skeptical.
And it came out, and a couple of my clients, I was still in New York City when that came out, and they're like, "Whoa, what do you think about that? What do you think?" So you remember there was the Tennessee Titans, and the wife was a famous chef, and it was all animal. Vegetable source protein, and it wasn't anything animal. They're like, they were born to do that.
Yeah.
All those guys were born on third base.
Yeah.
There's stories of guys being able to, be in the NFL for 15 years and they eat Subway.
Yeah.
They can get away with it because they're so genetically blessed. Not now.
Yeah.
That ended. Now everybody eats. You're supposed to eat like DK Metcalf and Aaron Donald. And there's so many examples of how important sports performance nutrition is now. And I tell the young kids, I go, even if you don't buy into it, if they're doing it, you got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
Right? What's the, what type of framing do you find is most helpful to get the average person in the mindset of proper nutritional principles? Like, how do you approach that conversation or get them to start?
Sarcasm.
Yeah. Sarcasm, it's effective.
Sarcasm. Yeah. I have that sign on the wall. Yeah. It's usually even before, if parents bring kids in, there's an analogy. This is probably not going to go well, but lazy kids come from lazy parents. Mm. Lazy kids are, when you see recess and there's kids that are really heavy, they still want to play, Mike.
Yeah.
They still want to move themselves around. We have a chubby dog at home and a rip dog. Yeah. And little Rosie still wants to race around with Possum.
Yeah.
And, so you have to teach the parents to change it. Mm-hmm. And you have to tell them that going to John's of Arthur Avenue for pizza in a cardboard box is not a good way to feed your family.
Yeah.
So I kind of give them lately I've been keeping my tone down and not being so adamant about it, but you're doing everybody a disservice. And I honestly believe regardless of programming or, how good are you with quickness versus top end speed? And there's so much of a science to being a strength coach. And I have friends that are really high level strength coaches and I follow people and it's again, they're catching up, but it's the most important thing for athletes, for people that want to look better, for the general public.
Yeah.
Right. And I honestly believe that people know when they don't do it very well. Mm-hmm. I keep pounding it. Sometimes people get it right away. I've had clients that I said, well, I like this powder, and they'll get it the next day.
Got it.
And that person makes $400K a year, and he's like one of the best hotel management guys in the East Coast. Go figure, right? So that's how and then I've had other people that 10 years down the road, they're still not doing it. I've walked people in supermarkets locally and said, this is the powder that you should use. It's whey. Right? Yeah. It was on. It's a good product. Yep, I'm not pushing Optimum Nutrition by any means.
Yeah, that's my go-to. That or Jocko are my two. Yeah,
right. Jocko's a great guy.
Well, because he has the Mulk line too. So I've found I like both of their ways. So I've switched between them regularly.
It's good to change.
Yeah.
If it doesn't taste good, you're not going to drink it on a regular basis. But it's those same people that I probably walk around the end cap and then they throw it back. You have to be willing to trust somebody. Mm-hmm. And I don't have anything to benefit from saying something. I'm like, if you can get, a gram per pound of body weight on your road through Whole Food, terrific. And you don't need the shake. Absolutely. Go for it. That's fine. But sarcasm.
Yeah.
And now that I'm 64 and I've been doing this for so long, I want people to cut to the chase. Like, the first day you meet him, I'll walk up, my wife will be like, oh God, here he goes. And I'll see a kid and they played like Mount St. Vincent the other night and they killed them. They're a new program, D3 program. And I saw number 5 and I'm like, I wanted to go on the field and go, dude, you're 6'1", 215. He's got like a great left hand. He's ambidextrous. Yeah. He's just playing in a really weak team. I'm like, you should do this. And, and then, or somebody that's really skinny and ectomorph. And I'm like, just eat more protein,
Yeah.
Youth is wasted on the young. I wish I had a pretty good start with that one course. I wish I'd started on pushing this even more when I was younger. So when you see Gabby Lyon and you see Who's another good protein person that, you do see on the internet. She's like an incredible proponent for it, and God bless her. And she's met with, protein's going to kill you. Carbs and fat are probably going to kill you eventually.
Yeah. She's one of my favorites. I do have Forever Strong. I am reading through that.
Yeah.
And I do like a lot of the studies, because she's classically trained. She has the empirical part. She actually just did an episode with Jocko too.
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yep.
Yeah, really, really interesting. It's what I liked about the one thing you mentioned where you kind of convince somebody at least just to try to introduce a shake to start.
One shake a day.
Yeah, like that alone, because I find you have to fire bullets, then cannonballs with people.
Right.
Because the average person isn't going to go full in on something usually. You have to kind of win them over. And then they feel a little bit better and they're like, oh, maybe there is something to this. And
again, it's not going to taste like a Haagen-Dazs shake.
Yeah.
Inevitably. The flavor thing, the Tootsie Roll flavors, the Fruit Loop flavors that these companies are doing. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I tried the Fruity Pebbles one just to see. It was horrible. Gross. I felt like I was just going to throw it up. It was bad. Yeah. It was disgusting. So I go my chocolate peanut butter, like all
and I mean, I can even break down, Mike, like transitioning somebody to get one shake in, one way shake. We're not, with some fruit, preferred fruit, got to have fiber. You need some carbohydrate with it. You just don't eat protein and low fat.
Yep.
We're all pretty much engineered to eat that way. Protein, carb, and fat. But that you can tell somebody, don't whip it up to them. Oh, it made me gassy. Are you leaving the blender on too long?
Yeah.
It's aerating it, right? So like even something as basic as drinking a shake, guys like me, we would have, ate dog food just forced.
Yeah.
You ever, have a sumo wrestler eat? To be a champion sumo wrestler, they eat like 10,000 calories in one meal.
That's crazy. Yeah.
They don't eat all day long.
Yeah.
They do this and hit each other. They play offensive lineman, defensive lineman. They don't eat. They train, and then it's the perfect way to get fat.
Yeah.
And that's how they're really kind of taught to be obese, 500 pounds. But they just forcing it in, right? If somebody is an ectomorph, a skinny person, and I eat so much, well, you're not eating enough.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to a point where do you become the Dana White, F you and be like really hard on people. It's interesting, all these influencers like Tony Robbins.
Yep.
And now he's like F-bombing.
Yep.
And it's colloquial. It's the way that everybody wants to talk now. And that's maybe maybe it's more cool than it is beneficial. Mm-hmm. But I'm of the ilk lately of I'm just going really quiet, go just eat more protein.
Yeah.
And I'm really quiet in the gym. Just try more protein.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Right? Just ease up on the carbs and fat.
Mm-hmm.
If it's working great for you, the carbs and fat, and you're ripped and you're strong as hell, I'm wrong. I'll be the first one to admit it.
But, you're waiting for that evidence still, right? So
feel free.
Yeah.
Feel free. Yep.
Super, super interesting stuff. So I want to go over to the strength training side a little bit too.
Sure.
In terms of the average person, one of the questions that I'm always interested in is when it comes to muscle groups or a specific muscle, is there one that you see doesn't get trained anywhere near enough?
So I would say aesthetically or athletically. So when we look at programming, we look at sports performance enhancement. When we look at aesthetic, it's really just an aesthetic value. But there was an old guy years ago. They referred to him as Dr. Joe, and he would he would like really rib the younger guys that were coming up in sports performance, strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And he would say physique first. So I always say I could train somebody as a bodybuilder and still make them a really good athlete and not pull their hamstring and imbalance. I would say, I would even say, Mike, from a postural standpoint, and this is like a whole other topic, that what we deal with now, training the general public, let me transgress.
Yeah. Yep.
That's called translation.
Mm-hmm.
So cell phone. It's called tech neck.
Mm-hmm.
I train our best chiropractor, phenomenal guy. I train him a couple times a week, and he calls it tech neck.
Yep.
Right. So I would say a postural issue from an athletic standpoint. Nobody trains calves now. Calves are so you're doing a standing calf raise. Most of acceleration is initially off your gastroc, and then it tibialis on the side. So, right. So they don't train that whatsoever. We do. I think that's probably the bodybuilder in me that we look at like all the smaller parts in terms of fillers.
Yeah.
A balance more maybe of hamstring to quad. That's always a quandary. Now it's separating hip flexor and doing these bandings where you're just going, 3 reps and at 45 degrees of accelerated posture. And now there's these specific bands. I was guilty of it from a bodybuilding standpoint. We used to be able to get away with not having gigantic legs, and then Tom Platt showed up, and then a back until Dorian turned around, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's what a back's supposed to look like." I would say, from an aesthetic standpoint, more hamstring to quad, and I believe that there is an easy correlation between an aesthetic guideline to looking at somebody and, versus like their their quad to hamstring, right? Extension to flexion, that you can look at them from the side and go, yeah, I have a female client that's super quad dominant, and she's a phenomenal Division I to be a lacrosse player, and she's really quad dominant, right? Yeah. So you look at somebody aesthetically and you go, there's an imbalance. Years ago, people ruined their shoulders because we were all pushing and not pulling. Yeah. So all this stuff, it's out there now. People understand it, but there has to be an equivalent. That's your GH joint, your glenohumeral joint, right? Your dislocate joint. So we had to learn to have a reciprocal strength and really hypertrophy as well of front to back of that joint. That's basically what you're training when you push and you pull. It's so simple now what they've broken down. When you train your body, it's really pushing and pulling your GH joint, this thingy, right? And your hip and your knee. That's it. Yeah. That's it, right? So there's 3 areas that need more mobility. There's ankle, right? Hip, thoracic, this. Yeah. More shoulder problems. It's just amazing what we've learned in the last post-pandemic. More neck problems, headaches, shoulder problems. It's this problem. Yeah. It's scapulothoracic. It's your T-spine. Yep. 1 to 12.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been in technology, for well over a decade, and I'm cognizant of health and fitness like we talked about, and I naturally arch forward. Like
you're round.
Yeah.
So like you said earlier, kyphosis. So we are rounded on the second part of our spine, a T-spine, thoracic spine. But if the head goes forward, what do you think is going to follow? Well, now you're slouching. Remember that? What parents would say. Yeah. I'm old. What they say in the 70s. And what was that movie where they had the girl walking with the book on her head and she had to balance it? And human beings can't press over their head anymore.
I know. Yeah. That was a big learning curve for me.
Can't press. Mike, we would do seated behind the neck presses with 335. Yeah. Because we could. Yep. Because we're supposed to. Now you have to accommodate for that, and you got to teach people not to incline press and use the top part of their pec, their clavicular attachment of their pec, and actually be able to press over the head, push back to your ear, push back to your ear. So now we have to accommodate and spiral rotate. Yeah. Right? Because they have no shoulder mobility. What we have to do now, which is called movement prep or prehab, to get somebody to train and not hurt themselves, it's like 25 minutes. Yeah. We never warmed up. Mm-hmm. My wife, who runs and jumps, and she's still really, really, even though she works like you do at a computer, she doesn't even need to warm up. On her leg day, she walks in the gym, goes right to the leg extension. The average person, their knee, their patella tendon would be, might tear off.
They'd blow up, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It'd be that a patella tendonitis for the rest of the life. Yeah. That's a whole other area. It's just, human mobility, flexibility, ranging. It's changed. We're really Cro-Magnon man. You ever look at the average UFC guy, and I'm not demeaning the UFC by any means. You ever see the average UFC guy that's been, especially the lighter weights that are always, they are so protracted, head translated.
Yeah.
Flexion and extension. A
what's
human
his
being's
name?
ear is supposed to be in a direct line with their AC joint. Did you know that?
No, that's interesting.
Yeah. So anybody that has neck problems, turn them to the side. And if their ear is not naturally skewing it, don't tell them what you're doing.
Yeah.
And put their ear, and if their ear isn't in a direct line with their AC joint, I'll probably guess and go that they're protracted forward, that their ear is way forward. I'm sorry, the AC joint is way forward to their ear. That they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yep. And then the prehab itself is a workout for people in the beginning in terms of just getting used to feeling that movement, right?
Some people after 25 minutes are like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And there's, there's so much value to being able to do that. And then what it does is it, initially allows you to put a load on their body.
Yep.
But even now it's like pressing overhead, a flight attendant putting something in the overhead. They can probably still do it because they have to, but I bet you that's an issue too, right? So there's just things due to postural deconstruction. Yeah, I call it Cro-Magnonism. If you look at the de-evolution of man now, it's like we've gone back to Cro-Magnon. Yeah, and we're going to probably eventually. Oh yeah. Yeah, remember you see old movies where the person's head is bigger than their body. Yeah. One of my training partners in California called it Ted Koppel syndrome, and I'm not demeaning Ted Koppel. That there's no maintenance. There's just a prolonged, age-long, lifelong atrophy. Yeah, from playing recess when they were in elementary school, where they actually put a little bit of a load on the body to all cerebral. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You want to hear a really amazing one? If so, this is probably maybe the general everybody should really listen to. So turn to the side to me. Way? Yeah. So just turn to the side right there. That's fine, right? Okay. All right. So what do you think your head weighs right now?
My head weighs?
What does it weigh?
I don't know.
10 pounds. 10? Average. I was going to say All right. Now act like you have a cell phone in your right hand. Show me how you look at your cell phone. Yeah. Keep going. Going. Most people are going to go flex more.
Yeah, they're going to go forward.
Guess what it weighs now?
15?
50.
50.
You have a 45-pound York plate in the back of your head.
That's crazy.
Isn't that amazing?
That's crazy, yeah.
And we wonder why everybody's going to see the chiropractor. Yep. Everybody has headaches. Everybody has, trap pain. Everybody has shoulder issues. Yeah. Everybody's rotator cuffs are being pulled off their scapula. We wonder why people are, I call it falling down the hill.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Crazy. 50 pounds.
I purposely am doing that, like, people look at me weird, but I'm doing the play now where like I try to pick my phone up to here because I'm
invent something. Yeah. That we can put around our waist that kind of acts like this and it puts it at face level. Yeah. It's called eye gaze. Mm-hmm. If you can invent something, we're all going to be rich. I'll buy in. Yeah. Well, I tell Dan to do that. I said, Dan, come up with something. Right. Just something that you can do this and be on the cell phone. And even, what do you think an average adolescent spends on their cell phone a week? Take a guess.
I've read some of the studies and I still can't get it right.
42 hours.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's a work week.
And my wife didn't get the opportunity to go to college, but she's an incredible worker and she does really well without the degree. I'm kind of like Muskish where I'm, going to school unless you're a chemical engineer, it isn't very time consuming. Mm-hmm. And how many hours a day do you go to class? I don't know, 3, 4. I didn't find that. Yeah. I just basically, breathe through it and still got out with my degree. It's not that hard. Yeah. Right. So there's idle time is the devil's workplace, or what's the other one that you want something done, ask a busy person. Mm-hmm. Kids aren't that busy. Yeah. If you can spend that many hours on your phone, probably not a good thing.
One of the things that I've seen work really well for me is people saying they don't have time to like consider, look at their or work. And then you ask to see their screen time. Like I try to do it very nicely. Like I'm not trying to antagonize anybody or confront them, but it's just like, let me see your screen time, and you'll see like exactly what you're talking about, an average of 4 hours a day or something, 5 hours a day.
6 for a teenager, adolescent. I don't know what the control group was, but they said it's an average of 42 hours.
That's crazy.
A week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the role models I have, we just had Easter yesterday, so I saw her yesterday, but my grandmother's 85 now, 86, walks every day, does her stretching, all of that. She's super lucid. She's upright, and she's literally still just moving, like
mobility.
Yeah. So
human being, the great cook, a brilliant guy in our industry. And he was the one who, this older Dr. Joe was making fun of him, making fun of great cook in a video. It was like, wow, it's wild because, older Dr. Joe like still looks great. He looked like Jack Lane when he was older, and he was still kind of jacked, and the aesthetic may be even more important than the athletic, where it's always function first, function over form. You might have. There's this symbiosis there. There's food, posturally correct, posterior delt maybe, and that's why we had all that AC impingement.
Yep.
All, quad to hamstring. That's why people were tearing the hamstrings or ACLing. We push to pull. We all did it wrong, right? But there's a lot to be learned from older people. We didn't grow up with phones. We didn't grow up with the internet. We didn't, I wasn't interested in it when I was younger, and then I fall prey to it too. You're going to get motivated by watching 20 motivational videos. You just lost an hour.
Yep.
And, it's amazing how you can lose so much time in your day by virtue of that stuff. It's like you probably don't have enough important stuff to do.
I was talking to somebody about that because they're like, yeah, I'll watch a motivational video to get amped up to do whatever for the day. And then they're like, before I know it, I'm 4 or 5 deep, and now I don't have the time to do.
Could have already warmed up.
Yeah.
Could have went through prehab. Yeah. And then that onus now that you're talking about with stop the motivational video, just be dedicated. Dedicated people don't need motivational videos. Mm-hmm. Look at one. Read one book. One couple pages of a Jocko. Fine. That's but now get moving.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Yeah, we're warmed up. We're gonna okay. No, now it's face off time. Game's on.
Yep.
Gotta play. Gotta move. Got to run.
And once you get the motion, you're in it anyway. Like it's the first step's usually the thing that you have to get over. And once you're there, it's the whole idea of being decisively engaged, right? Like that's a Jocko Willink thing. Where once you're in, like once I'm at the gym, once I'm out on the walk.
So how many times have you ever gone to the gym and left and didn't train?
Never.
Wow, that was a really quiet hum, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I did it once. I was 296 pounds and I was obsessed with getting up to 300.
Yeah.
So I went to a gym and then I said, I'm going to go eat. Maybe I'll be 297, 298. And so that was the onus where I'm going to eat and I'm going to try to get up to 300. I think I've done it twice.
Okay.
Yeah, once begun, half done. My father, that was one of his favorite sayings. Once begun, half done. If you want to go for a run, put one foot in front of the other. Start. Do an A skip, do a B march, do a knee hug. Start slow, lunge, do a lateral squat, warm up your adductors and abductors. Okay, but it's so rare that you're actually going to go into that environment.
Yep.
The kids, lacrosse players, when they're going to go shoot on the goalie, and then let's go eat at the calf. Let's go downtown and have 5 beers. No, it's just getting there and starting it.
Yeah.
Once begun, half done. It's one of my favorite.
I love
one of the ones on the wall.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's really the same could be said for anything that you also don't want to do, right? Like if you have a project that's looming that you don't want to start on, just commit to 5 minutes of working on that project, and I bet you're going to get some inertia to.
Procrastination is fear.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it.
Yep.
And then so right. Take a couple things off your table and do some easy stuff. Get rolling.
Yeah.
Right? We're not asking somebody to barbell squat 405 right off the bat.
No.
Prehab and movement prep, and then we're going to lunge, and we're going to do everything that we've learned. Foam rolling, static stretching, and then either activation or mobility or both. And then we're going to slowly progress. We're going to warm up.
Yeah.
We're going to do something power before we do strength. We might even do some acceleration. You progressively ease into it. You don't just go right into let's take two swords and like knife each other to death.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's a slow, steady progression.
There's some interesting stuff out there though, where I've seen, especially because I go to Gold's, it's right by my house, right? So I can just drive over there, and I've seen some of the younger generation just come in, go off their phone, go crazy, like with really bad form, and then just leave with no intention to.
No warm up or
it's like a really
because they can.
Yeah.
Because they're 17.
Yeah.
Wait till they're 40.
Yeah, I can't do it. Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. We need it. And by the way, they would still do better if they did a proper prehab or movement prep. They'd still do better. Yeah. Right. But they're just young. They're getting away with it. Didn't we all?
Yeah.
Didn't we all?
That's true.
Yeah, we never warmed up ever. Mm-mm. I trained with Billy Smith and Louie for a long time, Ferrigno, and we would just warm up with like 2 1/4 on the back. We never stretched. We never got on the ground. There were no foam rollers. We would just do light and fast, but not even. We'd leg press. We'd go 5 plates for 20 reps, and then we'll go to 10. We'll go to 15. Let's go to 17. Let's go to, we were getting away with it, and in our industry, it was the anabolics. Mm. Yeah. But, I'm always honest with people that come in the gym. I'm like, I took drugs. Any questions?
Yeah. One of the things I like, and then I was a fan, I don't know how you feel about them, but like John Meadows and a couple of those other guys too, because they broke the stigma around it as well. Like they were just like, hey, that's what it is. If you're on it, you train this way. If you're not, be considerate of these things.
Like, what I would say is don't insult somebody's intelligence. Yeah. When I was working in New York City, I would walk through the New York City subway system, and there'd be, you ever see the students and they're all tied up? It's the cutest thing, and they're keeping an eye on them, and they all have a string attached to them. And I remember this like 9-year-old girl looked at me, and I was walking through this New York City subway system with a tank top on, and she goes, "He's on steroids." I'm like, if she can figure it out, probably everybody else figures out. If they're a celebrity and all of a sudden they're really jacked, they're probably doing it.
I'm pretty sure The Rock's all natural, right? No, I'm kidding.
What did we learn? So it's a day after Easter. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. God bless him. If I was getting paid that much money, I'd probably still be on it too.
Oh yeah. And he's got the medical support for everything. Like if
you're older, Mike, and you're doing it for hormonal replacement, and then did Roger Clemens do it at the end of his career? Did other athletes that still did really well at the end of their careers? If it was done medically based, okay, the NFL wasn't tested until the early 90s. When I was with the Cowboys, it was like it wasn't even a thought. But if you did and you wanted to, you did.
Yeah. Really, really cool. Yeah. It makes sense to me. I think one of the things that we touched on a few times, and I think we've talked about it, but I just want to highlight it again, is the training for aesthetic and then for function, right? Or power or form, however you want to phrase it. There's a benefit to that cognitively for people too, where if they aesthetically start to feel and look better,
great point,
they're going to start putting a little bit more work in, and the power comes with it.
I said that to a friend of mine who was a long time, very good friend of mine, and he came to watch Brady play. And when they played in Long Island recently, Merchant Marine they played. And, so the older guys, their nutrition's not that big a deal, not as big a deal. It's, is it form or function? Is it body part or I can honestly, if somebody's on a 4-day split, really the bodybuilding 4-day split wasn't really that bad. We would do chest and bi, pushing a smaller elbow joint pull, if you think about it. Then we would do knee. And the old guys squatted. We did leg press, maybe kind of contraindicated as a movement. Whole of the conversation, but and then we lunged sometimes, and we certainly did a lot of squatting. Then we switched to Smith. We felt like it was safer on our lumbar spine. It could be done both, and so I'll go back to like DK Metcalf as a performance athlete. And when he got to Ole Miss as a freshman, he went to the strength coach and he said, "Can we train arms for the first month? I hate my skinny arms." And the strength coach smartly said, "Yeah, that's fine." He ended up getting paid millions of dollars a year, and he's probably got one of the best physiques. Austin Eckler's another one. Austin Eckler does single leg press on the when he comes back from the season getting beat up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so not functional. There's a happy medium there. There's a happy medium of function and aesthetic, or aesthetic and athletic. It doesn't have, in the old days, we still trained like athletes.
Yep.
We squatted, we deadlifted, we bent road, right? We pressed overhead. We didn't use that many machines. And then with the advent of all these equipment companies making, this new kind of hammers and everything else, it kind of, went unfunctional. Right. But it's a different mindset, but it doesn't have to be that far away. And the nutrition probably has to be a way bigger onus to the the sports performance guys and the strength coaches.
Yeah.
That's probably the problem, the difference between the two. But I could train somebody the way I'd want to train my son. I have a D1 at Marist who's phenomenal. I could train them in a 4-day split, almost like bodybuilder-ish. That'd be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
They might even be more balanced.
Yeah.
Right. And the point you made, Mike, is their confidence as men, even as women, female, their confidence, feeling good about themselves, walking on a field and going, I'm bigger, I'm more jacked, rolling my sleeves up, intimidating people like they did, in the 70s, the 80s, the linemen. I think it's more important for an athlete, the confidence that they get built from being better built than it is the sports performance enhancement. Yeah. Yeah. They're not going to play scared. They're not going to play intimidated. They're not going to play like I'm skinny, I'm small. Yeah. I'm jacked, I'm strong.
And I think that goes for everybody. I mean, my wife, when she gets, she gets a good pump for muscles, or like her arms or her back, right? Or her glutes or her quads feel a little bit better. She's she's just, she's like tackling
frankly,
everything.
Mike, there's more pressure on women than there is on men. You know, if a guy makes good money, he can be a wubba, we call in our house, and that's okay. He gets the hot trophy wife. Well, okay. It's even more important for them. And when somebody says it's not, they're inside going, I'm unhappy. I wish I had that. There's no better. There's more mental therapy going on in a fitness atmosphere. I'm not even going to say a gym. Then, running, going to the track. There's more mental therapy going on than physical therapy. Yeah. That's what I was drawn to, was not being skinny, being being more confident, feeling good about myself. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the things, I was talking to Brett over at Granite about this the other day, but it's one of the things that you have to put the work in to see the results. So it's not something you can just go out and buy and get instant gratification like a lot of other things that are dopamine releases. So when you're doing that process and you're putting that work in over time and you start to see the outcomes of it, you feel the accumulation of work that you've put into it.
It's not, it's the journey, not the destination. We as a former pro bodybuilder, we would get ready for 10 weeks and we'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to starve. I would fight the diet the first week, 10 days. It really, the fun part of it was the work to get there, right? And then look, and the discipline, not motivation, the discipline to stay on it and do it and not talk yourself out of it. The work to get there. I can think of somebody that I train, and I'm not going to say and call them out, but they're always looking at presentation versus. I met two of the guys from Circus du Soleil, and they were in the gym, right? And everybody looks at their aesthetic like, oh my God, look at that. Or an ice skater. It's the 98% of the work that they did early morning, practicing, right? Eating well, getting there on sleep deprivation. It's the end point, the performance sometimes is irrelevant. Yeah. And you listen to guys like Tom Brady, they're like, Julian Edelman, who made himself into a Hall of Fame slot receiver. He was a college quarterback, and he caught 10,000 passes before he actually went to camp because he was a quarterback, not a receiver. It's the work that's done. That's the proud stuff. Putting it in the confidence column. It's really not the end point. Yep. Yeah. It's always the, you teach athletes effort over results. I tell my son, I go, throw the ball in the woods.
Yeah.
I don't care. Take a shot, just let it go, let it rip. If you hit somebody on the sideline, all right, go apologize later. Let it go. It's really effort over results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's a good point. And I think it's something that everybody needs to hear, in regards to their own personal journey. I know we're at 104. We're shooting for probably 120 max here. One of the topics I want to go over before we kind of do the wind down phase is there's a lot of influencers out there pushing different types of movements and also nutrition pieces. I want to start on the movement side first, but what are some of the like fitness movements or strength movements or things you see out there that are just kind of ludicrous to you?
So something just popped in my head when you were finishing out that question. So a guy that I revere and I love, he's Irish. I'm Irish. Okay. There's a lot of Irish strength coaches. We're angry Irishmen. We like pushing people and causing discomfort, I guess. I don't know. But Mike Boyle on the cover of his book, New Functional Training for Sports, and which I read like 7 times. Brilliant guy, great career. And so Bulgarian split squat, right? So a study came out, single leg, we bound, we don't really jump too much as humans, right? Jump meaning 2 feet. Yeah. We bound, we cut, we change direction, right? It's really left, right, left. And a study came out and it said that it wasn't really that significant a unilateral movement, a Bulgarian split squat, right? And so what was on his cover, he said, I'm not doing it anymore. So he switched to other single leg, right? So it's an ever evolving thing, this thing.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, sometimes there's too much information. I love Mike. I like split squats.
Yeah.
I like them. I can tell you 5 different reasons, right? When you were 1 year old, you kicked the ball with your right foot, correct? Mm-hmm. When your parents rolled the ball to you, you kicked the ball. What did you use as your plant leg? What leg actually stabilized you?
Yeah, the left one.
Your left leg.
Yeah.
Your left leg on a right-footed person is always stronger and better balanced. So we always go right leg first, right? So there's one differentiation on the Bulgarian split, right? And I'm not deferring to the guy's brilliant. And I anytime I have a question, I go, Plyo, Mike Boyle. I'll pull up his stuff, but it might have to do with the foot, and that when you run, your foot is dorsally extended, right? Meaning top of your foot down, right? And you're not digging into the bench, you're not holding on, so it has to mimic sprint even more. But I still love the movement. So science is constantly changing and questioning, and there's so much of it now to a point of where maybe the point is keep it simple. Don't over analyze things. And I have a tendency to do that, analysis paralysis. But if it feels good to you, terrific, right? Is a leg press like so not functional that you can't use it? Well, do it unilaterally. Try a single leg press with 5 plates one day. See, it's not that easy to do it. And that's actually how humans move. If you jump, you're going to jump once unless you're rebounding under a basket, And a lot of times basketball players go off one foot, right? There's that left plant.
Yep.
Right foot in the air layup, right? So, I think, you have to kind of like, do things for yourself, try it for yourself. Is there a template for a way to train? 2x, 3x, 4x a week. Well, how do you split? How do you do this? I think there is a significant analysis paralysis now because there's too much. Be careful who you listen to.
Yeah.
Be careful who you listen to.
And that's the hardest thing, because there's so many voices out there kind of all screaming into the void at the same time.
And you mentioned that one fella, where they referred him as the mountain dog.
Oh, yeah, John Meadows. Yeah.
And it seemed like a nice guy, had a great demeanor, seemed like, he was kind of quiet. Unfortunately, he was addicted.
Yeah.
So was I.
Yep.
We were addicted to bodybuilding. And I'm not saying that it wasn't a pre-existing health issue. I don't really know, but taking a good amount of stuff, and so, good messages and that, but, and very honest, but look at Rich Piana.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just watched that documentary
and talk
again.
about some of the most detrimental messages. And I'm not talking bad. I'm just saying badly about, the dead, that there was so many, you watch 100 reps for, bicep. I mean, come on. If you're on enough vitamins, I call it, you could do push-ups and you're going to look good.
Yep.
Yeah. So programming doesn't have to be, when you're training amateur athletes, it's got to be really efficient, and you got to watch overtraining and how much is too much. And when you put chemicals into the whole scenario, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
There was a pro bodybuilder, won't mention his name, and he was eating McDonald's 5 times a day. And he looked really good. Yeah. And he had phenomenal genetics. He was super strong. That's a bad message. Yeah. That's a really bad message. Do you know what the correlation is? This is per Ed Connors. I owned some Gold Gyms when I was younger with him. He was the founder of Gold Gym, and he's created more careers than anybody. You know what the correlation is with all those deaths, with all those bodybuilders? You want to take a guess? It's really one thing. It's not really congenital. It's not who took more stuff, hepatic, liver, enlarged heart attacks. It's synthol. It's synthol. So all of those guys, if you look back, they had over-exaggerated arms, and they'd be smooth. I mean, really, an arm should have those. Yep. Right. You should be able to see striation. It seems that all those guys use synthol. And synthol was leaving this toxic minerals. Yeah. So that's really what was the, one of the bigger contributing factors. Interesting. Yeah. When he told me, I'm like, wow. And then I went back and looked at, and I was friends with some of those guys. And I look back and I'm like, yeah, the arms were like really, smooth. Yeah. But over accentuated. Yep. Well, Rich Piana was, my God. Yeah, he was at the top of that. Yeah. I just watched that documentary again. And then I was listening to Dr. Mike from Renaissance Periodization. Yeah. I was watching him do a video on Piana and stuff. And then I actually... Brilliant guy. Yeah. He's got a PhD in exercise phys. Yep. He's a brilliant guy, but you and I were talking about somebody else that you and I both like, and they get so far gone in... when I was with the WBF, there was a guy, Hillbilly Jim. He was a wrestler, and he was just on his way up, and he was one of the funniest human beings. And I was sitting with him. We were working with the wrestlers at that point with the WBF, and he started saying there were different pro wrestlers walking by us. Everybody was killing time, in between the fights. And he would say, believes the gimmick is the gimmick. And it was like, that they either bought into the gimmick where they actually believe their own gimmick, and you know what I mean. Yeah. And or that they actually have become the gimmick, which was worse. It was a progression of ego and self. And I was just laughing my head out, and I couldn't stop laughing. And Randy Macho Man Savage was walking by us, and and Jimmy was just Hillbilly Jim was just rattling out this guy. That's what happens. You get so much, so much bigger than, you think you're so much bigger than what the gimmick allows you, to a point of where with that kind of notoriety and that, you think you're God. Yeah. And you lose all sense of sense, as my wife would say. Yeah. You lose all sense of sense, and to a point of where, and I succumbed to it too when I was big Jim Quinn. Yeah. The future in the WBF, and you lose sense of it. It's valid. Yeah. We're almost at time here, so I'm going to wind us down. There's a bunch of other stuff. Maybe there will be another one in the future, because there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. What's one that you wanted to ask me that you were afraid it was too personal, or I wouldn't react the right way? I actually don't have anything. I'm an open book. I'll try to come up with one for next time. But there was an athlete that I trained, the most lovable kid, and I said, well, what? There was like 3 of them or 4 of them that came in for an hour session. I said, what's a question that you guys want to ask me? And he goes, Coach, why are your ears so big? And that's he's the cutest kid. He really is, and he's a really good athlete. Yeah. But I love the bluntness.
Oh yeah. No, there's nothing. I think everything we went over was kind of top of mind for me.
Good.
The way I like to close these out, I just like to end on a key theme or idea from what we talked about.
Yeah.
That if anybody listening just takes away one thing,
bulleted point.
Yeah. What would be yours for this conversation?
It's the food. Food's always got to be the biggest, and I'm a strength coach, right? I'm not a bodybuilder anymore. So it's the food. Be careful who you listen to, right? Follow people that have what you want. Or there's a ton of anecdotal evidence that they've helped people for a long period of time. Guy, girl, different sports. If you want to be an athlete, would be a good third one. What happens if what we were doing all along was wrong? You have to evolve. You have to be amenable. And even as a parent, as a friend, that you're like doing things and you're oblivious to it, and that you wake up one day and you read something and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe, we have to evolve, but you have to be very careful to who you're following, who you're listening to. I'd probably call it at that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. I'm going to share the website link, the Instagram link, all that in all of the stuff when we put it online so people can click it and check out more.
Cool.
But yeah, I really appreciate you coming out. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. Thank you for the time.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Bye.